Commissioner Aceves,
Present.
Commissioner Allen,
Here.
Commissioner Freeman,
Here.
Commissioner Guyer,
Here.
Commissioner Hartman,
Here.
Commissioner Lavanino,
Here.
Commissioner Sierra, Commissioner Stark,
Here.
Commissioner Waterfield, Commissioner Williams. Let the record reflect that Commissioners Sierra and Commissioner Williams are absent.
At this time, can you please stand and join the commission?
Natasha, we can't hear, at least I can't hear on Zoom. I can't hear Etta.
Okay, can you hear me now? Steve, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Now we're good.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I would like to make a change in the lineup of the agenda. We have present with us today the family of Paul Hood. We have his wife, Terry, his daughter, Julia, and his son, Jeff. And I want to do the special proclamation to do that first before we do any other business. Are the commissioners okay with this? Thank you. Thank you. Madam Clerk, do you want to read that item into record?
Chair Waterfield and members of the commission, business item number 1 is to present a resolution of appreciation for Paul Hood.
Thank you. The commission is presenting Paul's family a resolution of appreciation for his tremendous work he has done in Santa Barbara County with Lafco. He was a great man, and we truly miss his wisdom, his knowledge, and his presence. And if I could take a few moments to read this from our commission. Resolution of appreciation for Paul Hood. Resolution from Santa Barbara Lafco as a tribute to the legacy of Paul Hood for his dedicated and outstanding service to Lafco. Whereas Executive Officer Paul Hood served Lafco with distinction from 2013 to 2020, working with selfless devotion to encourage the orderly growth of local government, preserve agricultural lands, and to discourage urban sprawl, and to ensure efficient local government services. And whereas Paul Hood provided leadership and encouraged public participation with fairness, touching many lives and hearts throughout the public service that spans decades and times with vast accomplishments. And whereas the commission wishes to honor the memory of Paul Hood by publicly recognizing his contributions to Lafco, the cities, the communities, and the people of Santa Barbara County. Now, therefore, the commission hereby expresses heartfelt gratitude and appreciation to Paul Hood for his legacy of service to the public, improving the lives of others, and to his family for sharing him with us. And thank you so much for that last part, for allowing us to have Paul for so many years. He was truly a hero in my eyes and a great mentor to me. We also have a recognition from Cal Lafco that will be given to you as well. Absolutely. Oh, there we go.
You're familiar with Paul Hood and Lafco, but I wanted to share just a little personal story that is so Paul. We were married for 43 years, and in the latter decade of our marriage, we discovered a little marital kernel of wisdom, and that was every day when you get up, think of something small that you can do for your spouse or your significant other. And it was transformative in that it makes you think in terms of this person that you care about, doing something for them, and they don't have to acknowledge it or recognize that you've done it. It just makes you feel good. And so, for example, Paul was British, so he was an ardent tea drinker. But once in a while, he would brave the Keurig machine for me and make me a cup of coffee. And we would just have a short 10-minute morning break, quality time, just chat and enjoy each other. But one day he was out of sorts. I knew to steer clear. And we came back together in the kitchen to fix dinner in the evening. And I thought, well, let's put that marital kernel of wisdom to good use and make this a positive dinner prep. And so I said, Paul, what did you do for me today? Thinking that we're in the kitchen, this is a perfect opportunity to do something. And he shot right back at me and said, I cleaned the pool. So clearly this wasn't going the way I expected. And I said, well, Paul, you clean the pool every day. And he said, he didn't miss a beat. And he said, I know. But today, I did it for you. And I realized that that's what Paul did.
Yeah.
He made me laugh, in spite of myself. And he could see the humor in so many different circumstances and events. And he could make people smile and make them laugh. And we missed that.
Oh, my gosh.
Thank you for having us.
No, thank
today.
you. And Terry, I know there's others that would like, to say something about Paul to you and to his children, because he was great. Roger?
Well, I had the honor of being on the board when we hired Paul. And, obviously he came highly recommended, experienced. But he took off day one like you wouldn't believe. But the thing that really impressed me most about him was that when you asked him a question, he would pause, not respond right away. And then he'd come back with an answer, and it was always the correct answer. And that's what I really appreciate about him, a great advisor, and this world is missing a great soul.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Stark?
I just want to say I wish his family all the best. We all really liked him, we respected him, and we love Paul. He was a good man and seems to have done well with his family. I even understand one of his daughters is working in a county counsel's office. Is that correct? Attorney General's stepped down, but anyway, thank you for coming here, and we wish you all the best.
He
Mr. Williams?
made so many friends here with you. You made his job a joy and a pleasure. So
Well, I hope that day he was out of sorts, it wasn't because of me. I definitely caused Paul a lot of work, but I will tell you that he was such a straight shooter, such a man of knowledge and wisdom, and served this organization with class and distinction. And we thank you for the time that we had with someone that belongs to you more than anyone else. And Shane thought it was county counsel's office because he used to work in county counsel's office.
Ms. Hartman?
Thank you. You anticipated. Well,
Absolutely.
I had an opportunity to work with Paul outside board meetings. I have a number of special districts, and the Los Olivos Community Services District was forming, and it took years. And he attended so many community meetings, and he became, because of his patience and his, this was very fiery in the community, and there was a lot of heated discussion and passions ran high, and his measured, even keel changed the energy, and people, he became quite beloved, and people there were so sorry to learn of his sudden death, and we all still feel that loss. But he was a wonderful, wonderful human being.
Thank you, Ms. Hartman. Mr. Labanino?
Thank you, Ms. Chair. Yeah, I just got to piggyback on what Joan said. It's just, he could diffuse any situation, and he really put the service in public service. You know, there was no agenda. There was no grandstanding. There was no glory search. It was, it's just getting the job done and serving the public. And I also have to say, dealing with all of our personalities, was no easy task. So we all enjoyed him. He stayed patient with us, no matter how many times it took him to explain something to me. He was always very patient, and I really do miss him.
Thank you, Mr. Labanino. And I believe we have some Lafco people on the phone from other agencies. We do not? Okay. All right, thank you. Terry, Jeff, and Julia, thank you so much for sharing Paul with us. He was a wonderful man, as you know, and as I told you when I first met you, the learning curve I had with Lafco. He was so patient with me, but 2 words that would describe Paul, 3 words. He was a gentleman, he was a man of wisdom, and he was a man of knowledge, and he shared that. And he wanted to make sure that every one of the commissioners were very well informed. And I am a better person because I knew Paul Hood. He was a very good man. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for sharing them with us. I'm sorry. There are speakers on the phone? No, there wasn't. No. Mm-mm. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, we'll go back to the order of the agenda, and the next item are the minutes. The next item of business is the approval of the minutes from the October 7, 2021 meeting. We do have some changes to the meeting, so Madam Clerk, can you please read that?
Chair Waterfield and members of the commission, I just wanted to announce an amendment to business item number 2, reflecting the addition of resolution number 21-15.
Thank you. Now I will entertain a motion. Do I have a motion? No, for the minutes. Yeah,
I'll move approval of the minutes.
thank you. Absolutely. Okay, please carry on. Okay, thank you. Okay, if we do have a motion from Mr. Stark. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Seves, any further discussion? Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aceves,
Aye.
Commissioner Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Guyer,
Aye.
Commissioner Hartman,
Aye.
Commissioner Labanino,
Aye.
Commissioner Stark,
Aye.
Chair Waterfield.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Now, our next order of business is public comment. Now is the time for members of the public to speak on items that are not on the agenda. Madam Clerk, are there any requests to speak on items that are not on the agenda?
Chair Waterfield and members of the commission, we have no requests to speak. And at this time, I would just like to remind members of the public that if you are viewing our meeting today via Zoom and there is an item you would like to speak on under that item, please use the raise hand feature and we will call your name at the appropriate time.
Thank you. The next item of business is the approval of the consent calendar. Would any commissioners like to pull an item off the consent calendar? Yes.
If I could just make a comment, and I don't need to pull the item, just
Okay.
note a document that was submitted for the record for item, consent item, agenda number 1. We distributed a memorandum signed by the Public Health Department dated September 28, 2021. That was submitted to the commissioners and posted online. And it's a memo from the 2 county health officials basically finding a need, encouraging social distancing and doing so especially in light of AB 361, which allows remote participation by teleconferencing. So that would add to the additional evidence and basis for your determination here today that that requirement meets one of the 2 criteria in the statute, and therefore we can continue to do social distancing.
Great,
Okay.
fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Dillon. If there's no other comments to be made, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar. Mr. Sezes, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Shane. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aceves,
Aye.
Commissioner Freeman,
Aye.
Commissioner Guyer,
Aye.
Commissioner Hartman,
Aye.
Commissioner Lavanino,
Aye.
Commissioner Stark,
Aye.
Chair Waterfield.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. The next item is changes of organization, item number 1. Will the clerk please read that item into the record?
Chair Waterfield and members of the commission, changes of organization item number 1 is to consider approval of Lafco application file number 21-02 for the 3270 Beach Club Road annexation to Carpinteria Sanitary District, annexation number 136, and adoption of resolution 21-13.
Thank you, and we will get a report from our executive director.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Just to start, we would like to note that Resolution 2113 actually needs to change that resolution to be in sequence with our other resolutions. So I want to make that notation as part of the record. And then we will get our PowerPoint up, maybe. So this is an application that was submitted by the district through a resolution of application. This includes 5 parcels that are located between the address 3270 and 3284 Beach Club Road, including 5 APN parcels, totaling collectively 1.76 acres. The purpose of this annexation is to annex into the Carpinteria Sanitation District to provide a sewer connection for the existing house and future service for the vacant lots that are adjacent to this house. The property is outside of the district's sphere of influence, which was last updated in 2017. So the action today will also amend the sphere of influence while we annex. General vicinity of the area is in the northwest location of Beach Club Road area. Here's a detail map. It's contiguous to the existing district boundary, which is to the west of that, 5 consecutive parcels. Connection would be to the north along the road line that has an existing sewer main. The land use is residential, with 3 of the lots being developed with the single-family house that straddles across those. 2 of those lots are still remain vacant. With this annexation, there is no change in land use that would be facilitated by the boundary change. Continues to be within the county under residential zoning 8R1. The district submitted a plan for service that outlined the adequacy of their services to be able to provide service to the 5 parcels. That can be found in Exhibit Attachment F. The existing sewer line, as I said, is in Padero Lane, just north of the property, about approximately 200 linear feet that would need to be extended. In this case, the district adopted a categorical exemption under Class 19, 15319. Staff has added an additional Class 3 under Section 15303. And the reason being is that the Section 15319 covers the existing residents to be added of small parcels with existing facilities. And the 2 vacant lots are added under a different classification for any future homes that may be built. The parcel is uninhabited, which means less than 12 registered voters. The district has consented in waiving the conducting authority proceedings, as well as the property owner. So therefore, we can proceed with the approval without any notice and hearing of that process. To conclude, the site is located in an area that does allow the district to be the best service provider, as they are providing property to the adjacent area. And the annexation represents a reasonable and logical extension, really, of Beach Club area and the other surrounding parcels. I will note that the commission a few years ago approved a similar annexation in this neighborhood, at which time comments were raised that the entire tract likely should have been brought in at some point in the future. So that will be considered. We are undertaking a municipal service review and sphere update for water and wastewater likely in 2022. This district will be part of that evaluation, and I think we'll look at this entire area during that process. So with that, the recommendation is to approve it by resolution with the following notation. So if there are any questions, that concludes staff presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Prater. Do we have any questions from the commission? I don't see any here. I don't know if online. Do we have any online?
Chair Waterfield and members of the commission, I do have Mr. Craig Murray.
Okay. Mr. Murray?
Thank you, members of the commission. Craig Murray, General Manager, Carpinteria Sanitary District. I don't have anything to add to Mr. Prater's presentation. I just wanted to let you know I'm here online to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Murray. Do we have anyone from public comment?
Chair Waterfield and members of the commission, we have no request to speak on this item.
Okay, that concludes public comment. We'll bring this back to the board for any discussion. If not, I will entertain a motion to approve.
Commissioner Guyer, I'll move for approval.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aceves,
Aye.
Commissioner Freeman,
Aye.
Commissioner Guyer,
Aye.
Commissioner Hartman,
Aye.
Commissioner Lavanino,
Aye.
Commissioner Stark,
Aye.
Chair Waterfield.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. The next item is business item number 1. Will the clerk please read that item into record? Oh, we did that. Okay. That was, no. No, that we did. Business item number 2, okay. Excuse me, we did that one. The next item is business item number 2. Will the clerk please read that item into the record?
Chair Waterfield and members of the commission, business item number 2 is to authorize the process for selecting a regular and possible alternate public member to serve on Lafco and appoint an ad hoc committee.
And our executive director will
Okay, thank you.
elaborate.
Thank you, Chair. This is to authorize the process for selecting our public member. As you know, Roger Welt, our regular public member, had to resign and step down to family matters. And we have been fortunate that our alternate commissioner, Mr. Stark, is able to sit and vote in his absence, but we do need to fill that vacancy. And so this will start the process. Along with that process, we have recently amended our commissioner handbook to revise what that process for selection is. And this action today would allow the opening of a minimum 30-day application period for any interested candidates. We would send a notice out to the papers. We would notify all city clerks and general managers announcing that the 30-day period is open. And it will open on November 8th and close on December 8th. And then we would hope to have the commission appoint an ad hoc committee, likely of each category, one from a city, one from a county, and one from a special district member, to represent an ad hoc committee to do initial interviews. Those interviews are tentatively scheduled for December 17th, next door to our chambers here in Santa Barbara. And we can hold those both in person and virtually. We have that set up for that day. We haven't set the time frame for that yet. We'll fine tune that as we proceed. And then ultimately, we would have the candidates brought back and a recommendation from that ad hoc committee at our January 6th meeting for a final selection of our regular public member. And the reason it's being noticed as both a regular and alternate member is I have a strong suspicion that our alternate member, Mr. Shark, would like to probably apply and potentially be appointed. And so we're covered in the event that he does apply, gets appointed as the regular member. We can appoint an alternate member to backfill his spot. So with that, I wanted to make a notation. As part of the form application, I needed to make a notation date. It states as November 8th as the close date. I need to change that to December 8th. So a small clarification on that. So with that, that concludes my report. If there are any questions, happy to
Okay,
answer
thank you,
them.
Mr. Prater. Do we have any questions from the commission? Anyone want to make any comments? How about online?
Chair Waterfield and members of the commission, I have no request to speak under this item.
Okay, what about who would like to be on the ad hoc committee? We've got one, we need one from the city, the county, and special district.
Chair Waterfield and members of the commission, I have Commissioner Hartman with her hand raised.
Ms. Hartman?
I'd be delighted to serve.
Okay.
I'll join as a city rep.
Okay, Mr. Sezes. And what about a special district?
Commissioner Guyer, I'll volunteer.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, that was quick. So we have Hartman, we have Aceves, and we have Guyer. So perfect. Thank you. Yes, we do. And so with that, do we have any public comment in regards to this item?
Chair Waterfield and members of the commission, we have no request to speak.
Okay, then I will proceed with a motion.
I'll move the
Okay.
appointment.
Do I have a second?
I will second.
Thank you. We have a first, we have a second. Madam Mayor, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aceves,
Aye.
Commissioner Freeman,
Aye.
Commissioner Guyer,
Aye.
Commissioner Hartman,
Aye.
Commissioner Lavanino,
Aye.
Commissioner Stark,
Aye.
Chair Waterfield.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. The next item is business item number 3. Will the clerk please read that item into the record?
Chair Waterfield and members of the commission, business item number 3 is to consider the following actions regarding the Santa Barbara Lafco executive officer. A, to approve a 2-year employment agreement with Michael Prater for a TBD monthly plus an extra cash allowance of $118 per pay period effective December 1st, 2021.
Thank you. And I believe our attorney will take over.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, we have a slight change of plan on this item because due to a glitch in the published notice for business item number 2, we do not have sufficient notice under the Brown Act to approve a contract because we neglected to specify a contract amount, either a monthly amount or an annual amount, or any amount for that matter. So for today's purposes, though, we could still get some work done because it's the commission's responsibility to set the salary of the executive officer. And to that end, you have detailed information in front of you about the proposal for the contract, which you can discuss and consider. You can give direction today to staff to return with a contract that has a specific dollar amount that you would like to consider in December, but we would not take action on that today. So that would be appropriate. I did make a proposal on the salary at the staff level to give you something to shoot at today. And just a quick run through on that is at the staff level, I recommended a 2-year appointment of Mr. Prater and to renew his contract that included a 5% salary increase. To that end, there's information in your packet regarding the Consumer Price Index. There's a Cal Lafco survey of similar Lafco executive officer salaries. There's also my research on the most recent salary numbers for Ventura and San Luis Obispo Lafcos, which are pretty close to being comparable to Santa Barbara, with Santa Barbara kind of being in between the two because Ventura is a bigger county and has more activity. San Luis, not that much smaller, but a lot of the similar characteristics and type of work that we do here in Santa Barbara. So you have that in the packet. Also, since we signed Mike's original contract, I did not realize what was coming down the road, but the county slightly modified their salary range for county department heads. And that's significant. Well, it's not a giant change, but they increased by the entry-level base salary by $542.88 per year. So in terms of calculating Mr. Prater's salary increase, I recommend we not continue to latch on to a salary base that was shortly thereafter increased by the county. If we had known the county salary base was about to increase, I think we would have at least discussed that and factored it into the salary. So in any event, the proposed salary increase is based on what the salary base is now for entry county department head, which would be $161,576.48. So the 5% number, that is based on the fact that the county did a review of their department heads in April of last year, and this memo is in your packet. They made a recommendation of salary increases for department heads depending on employee performance reviews. And so it's a case-by-case basis depending on how each department head was reviewed. And they recommended between 0% and 5%. So you did do Mr. Prater's EPR, of course. That was a closed session item. And without trying to disclose or go into any detail about that, I felt comfortable, at least given the proposal for you to consider a 5% increase. That's at the top of the salary range. I would note some changes to the information. When Mr. Prater and I initially negotiated his contract, which he has signed, even though we're not ready to approve it today, we both thought, based on information he found, that the CPI that would apply was from the previous March, which was 2.2%. And then after everything was done and put to bed, we discovered it was actually 4.7%. So what I thought was going to be a 2.8% raise is actually a 0.3% raise. So the commission can consider that if you wish. You could stay with the 5%, or if you want to consider other options, that's your prerogative. And I think that concludes my staff report on the salary. There's another action item I'd like you to take, though, today. The contract expires on December 3rd. And recall we changed the regular meeting schedule a few months ago to move that hearing to December 9 to accommodate the supervisors going off to CSAC. So what we have is a situation where the contract expires and there's a week, 1 week of no contract will be in effect from December 3rd to December 9. And there's no way around that. We cannot call a special meeting to set the salary of an executive officer. That's prohibited under the Brown Act. We can't do it today, and it's too late to amend our regular meeting schedule. So, but the workaround is that I would recommend that today you extend his appointment as executive officer from December 3rd to December 9. So you would take that action today, and then that would get us through to December 9 when the contract will be in front of you. And then you could then take action to approve what would be a proposed 2-year contract and a 2-year appointment, an extension of a 2-year appointment as executive officer. And let's see, I had one other point on the contract. Oh, it's very unusual to have somebody be an executive officer and not on contract. So the proposal would be, and I've already talked to Mr. Prater about this, to work out an accommodation where we would determine the salary that he would lose by that 1 week of our schedule's not working out properly. He makes, once you work it out to about a 1 week pay, he makes about $3,718 a week. So we would sort of accommodate that. Now, you can't pay somebody for work already done. You can't have retroactive contracts, so we're going to avoid that. But you can consider increasing the salary going forward over the next year to include that amount of money prorated over that period of time. So I don't have a dollar figure yet. I'm not sure how we would work this out with payroll and ADP, and that, but if you go with the 5% as an example, then we would add to that 5% plus this 1 week of lost salary prorated over the balance of the next year. So that would be part of it. And having said that, I'm available for questions, Madam Chair.
Do we have Mr. Stark? I don't blame you.
Are we permitted to adopt a motion in concept and you figure out the math when it comes later?
We can't hear.
Shane, is your mic on?
I'll repeat myself. Are we, can you hear me now? I think so. Are we permitted to approve a contract in concept and then come back with the specific arithmetic and numbers when we present the final contract?
Yes, you are. The agenda does talk about a salary to be determined, so I think it's envisioned you would discuss at least a recommended salary today.
So, I guess I would ask your opinion. What is the cleanest way of dealing with this 6 or 7 day gap, which is our problem? Is it to extend the current contract, and when we do that, not do anything about the salary, and then when we approve the 2-year contract going forward, that contains an additional increment, small increment to make up for the week that there was some difference in pay or no pay? Is that the idea?
Except for the fact that we cannot extend the current contract because we're not noticed to do that.
Okay.
Our game plan had been to notice it with a dollar amount for today, which we somehow missed that boat, so we're kind of stuck there.
Okay. Oh, so here's my last question. Is the 5% an amount that is contingent upon a future performance examination? Is that correct? Is that the maximum?
No, it's not the maximum. It's based on his EPR for the last year and also based on other factors like consumer price index and other comparable EO salaries for Lafco.
Okay, that I understand. And when does that kick in? Does that kick in at the beginning of the new 2-year contract that we're called upon to approve?
Yes.
Okay, that seems fair enough. I mean, but I just want to know what the deal was.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Sierra?
Thank you very much. I guess I want clarification. The 5% we're talking about, does that include the CPI or is that in addition to CPI?
Commissioner Sierra, there is no requirement that when you consider raises for staff or for executive officers that you at least grant the CPI. That is not normal. In fact, a lean year, I know the county would sort of scrape together offers to staff, and it did not equal the CPI. There was sometimes staff losing ground on the cost of living. But certainly CPI is a factor, and so I factored it in when I was trying to make a recommendation. So it does cover the CPI. It's more than the CPI, which is 4.7%. It would be a total of 5%. And again, that's a 0.3% raise if you assume CPI is the cost of living.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Williams, do you have a
So
question?
my only question is the two scenarios of extending the contract and adding the loss of pay from a contract gap, are those two options or are they both necessary because of the constraints of what we're allowed to do per meeting?
We were combining those to be one action on December 9th. And I think that's the short answer, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Mr. Sevi?
And just clarify, the extension is because the contract calls for an absolute termination on the 1st of December?
It absolutely expires on December 3rd.
So there isn't a rollover, there's an
there is not.
extension? Okay. And as far as the compensation, couldn't we just do a retroactive pay for those 9 days?
No,
And
you
not-
cannot.
You cannot?
I know it sometimes occurs, I've seen it done, but the standard law in contracts is you can't contract for services already submitted. It's a little more rigorous when you get to government contracts. We're trying to get there anyway by basically increasing the salary going forward, so we're not going to leave Mr. Prater holding the bag for that 8 days of salary. But it's the cleaner preferred way, and I bet you've seen an agenda item or two in your day where maybe somebody did that, but
Well, it's
not
very,
done.
it's very common, at least in the cities, when you're negotiating contracts with unions, is that there's sometimes an agreement to pay it retroactive to a certain date.
I inquired of that one time with when I was with county council, our labor negotiator or attorney that advised labor negotiations, and her opinion was that they could go back to the date the negotiations began. There was some sort of relation back allowed under the statute, and they weren't going to penalize the union who showed up on, say, September 1st for a contract that's not approved until, say, the end of November. So I do know that's a practice, and when I inquired about that, I haven't researched it, Mr. Aceves, so maybe you know more, but
Okay, so I just want to be clear,
there is a practice like that, yes.
the first thing you're asking for is to extend the contract from 12/1 to 12/9?
12/3 to 12/9.
12/3 to 12?
No, I'm asking you to extend the appointment as executive officer from 12/3 to 12/9. And on the second item, the salary, we're asking for conceptual input on what you would like to see come back in December. So 2 things, executive officer appointment, extended for, I think that's 8 days, 12/3 to 12/9. And the second one is tell us what to do with the salary.
And what about, you're talking about the loose salary, the salary of the 3718 or his entire salary?
His entire salary.
Okay. And then what about the 3718? Does that come into play?
It would be, my preferred course of action would be make a recommendation on the
Okay.
salary increase like 5%. And then as part of that motion, it would include an adjustment to factor the 18 prorated over the next year.
And then there was a cash increase also, right? Benefit, on the benefit, wasn't there a?
No, that was part of the placeholder agenda, which I never paid attention to because the extra cash allowance is in his contract. So all the other benefits have been pretty much nailed down, and Mike and I have been over them in detail, so I think we're good there. But although, at some point you might want to hear from Mr. Prater on these issues. Mr. Prater is, by the way, sitting over at a separate table to make it clear that he's here in his individual capacity on the contract rather than staff to the commission on this one.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Do we have any more speakers on this?
Do we have more?
Yeah, Commissioner Guyer, I have some questions.
Jay Freeman. Mr. Freeman.
Yes. Yes. So first of all, I'm going to try to clarify something to either help somebody, or we will discover that I don't know something and I will get a correction from and it's like I'm like, so it's context here. So it seems like the appointment of the executive officer is just unrelated to the contract. And so what we're doing is we're extending the appointment of the executive officer, and then there will be this 6 or 7 day period where Mr. Prater will be working contractless, but he's okay with that because we're going to figure out how to deal with making him whole on the money. Like, and so that's why I've been seeing some kind of confusion over it's like, well, we can't adjust the contract, but we can adjust the appointment because those are separate things. Is that what's going on here?
That's correct.
Okay. As far as recommendations or requests related to the salary, inflation has been pretty brutal right now, is my understanding. And as you said, the expectation was 2.2% and turned out to actually be 4.7%. And given that there was an intent to by staff based on the EPR to do the to provide a salary bump, and that it turns out that salary bump doesn't really exist given the correct understanding of what the CPI was, and that I'm sure that if staff had known the correct CPI before doing the math, we would actually have a different staff recommendation right now that would be basing our like anchoring our discussion. I'm trying to just kind of mentally think that, okay, well, it's a couple percent more than what we're looking at right now, and I would be okay and kind of expecting to see at the next meeting that it will be bumped by that additional couple percent. I don't know if anyone else is thinking that way, but that's my feeling with relation to this kind of CPI staffing. So.
Okay.
I had a side question there, but I think Mr. Freeman, that's essentially correct.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Do we have any other speakers?
Commissioner Guyer.
Thank you, Mr. Guyer. Go ahead.
Okay, well, I share Jay's comment. I would really support a 7% increase, taking into consideration the CPI. I think also with those 8 days or 7 days or whatever it is, there probably has to be some calculation for vacation time and that kind of. I mean, I don't know what that calculates out to. I really don't like the idea of amortizing that 8 day period across a long period of time. I would rather see the new pay schedule come back, a pay schedule, so that the first payment includes those 8 days, and then from there on, it just falls back to a normal schedule. And I had one other thing. Oh, yes, the most important thing. I would really support a 3-year contract instead of a 2-year contract.
Okay.
That's
Madam Chair, just a comment. If on the one, making up the entire deficit in the first week versus amortizing it over the year, it's Mike Prater is the person who runs the payroll, and sometimes these simple fixes turn out to be administrative burdens. But if it can be done, it's really at the prerogative of the commission. But there's an administrative issue there, which I'm sure is resolvable. It's just a question of how much work.
Okay. Perfect. Any other comments? No other comments for salaries or anything else? If not, Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item?
Chair Waterfield and members of the commission, we have no request to speak on this item.
Okay, so then what you're asking is we need to take an action, 2 actions. The appointment as from December 3rd to December the 12th
Ninth.
is to appoint Mr. Prater as Executive Director.
To December 9th. So extend his appointment from December 2nd to December 9.
Not December 3rd?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
December,
Okay.
no,
December
December-
12th to December
Decem-
9th.
December 3rd to December 9th.
Okay.
Yes.
And appoint him as Executive Director. That's our first action.
I would
I
move,
move to extend the appointment of Mr. Prater as executive director from December 3rd to December 9th.
Okay, do
I'll-
we have a second?
I'll second it, Commissioner Guyer.
Do we have any discussion? If not, Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aceves,
Aye.
Commissioner Freeman,
Aye.
Commissioner Guyer,
Aye.
Commissioner Hartman,
Aye.
Commissioner Lavanino,
Aye.
Commissioner Stark,
Aye.
Chair Waterfield.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, the next item is that we have discussed his entire salary. So we take all these discussions into consideration and make that motion?
a conceptual motion at
A
most.
conceptual
yeah, yeah.
motion? Okay,
I had a question before we make a motion on that.
okay.
There was discussion by a couple of commissioners to increase the percentage. Is there an obligation that we have to pay the $3,700, or can we just say, we're going to increase it by 2% and call it even?
You can do that. If you're giving him a higher raise than the 5% that we conceptually agreed to, you could say part of that is to make up for that 1 week of lost pay.
Okay.
And by the way, on that 1 week, I did check with risk management about liability issues, insurance coverage, and things of that nature, and all that is fine. Even a volunteer for a public agency can be insured and be on the public agency's insurance coverage. And then Mr. Prater also carries a lot of other insurance for health insurance, workers' comp, and things of that nature. And then he expenses that back to Lafco, and that would all still be maintained in place. So
We're not changing anything
Right.
other than we're just discussing the salary. So, and if we're good with not have to worry about those 9 days and increase it to 7% from 5%, then I'd be willing to make a motion that the salary, that our attorney come back with the contract at our December 9th meeting? Is that when it would be?
Yes.
And the contract would include a compensation increase of 7%,
In lieu of the
period,
3718.
period, 7%.
and it would moot the
In lieu of the
37.
3718.
Yeah.
Yeah, not even discussing that 9
Got it.
days. And I think.
Administration-wise, that's much easier to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think if Mr. Prater wants to speak to that, I mean, that's fine, because
Sure.
we're changing his compensation. If that's, you want to say anything about that? No?
I agree 100% with that. Thank you.
Okay. So he's in agreement, so that'd be my motion to come back on December 9th with a 7% salary increase, period.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mr. Guyer. Do we have discussion?
Yes, Chair Waterfield and members of the commission, I have Commissioner Freeman with his hand raised.
Mr. Freeman?
So I would like to point out explicitly that so what we had gone is from a conversation of giving a 5% raise and then doing a prorated compensation for the 1 week of lost time. 1 week of lost time is approximately 2%. And so what we had been discussing was 5% plus the compensation, and now we're moving to giving a 7% raise, which is effectively that same amount, which means that if we were interested in doing the CPI compensation correctly, we kind of like lost that in this monetary shell game in some sense. And so I just want to make certain that like it just feels a little unfair in the if we had wanted to give the raise and make certain that Mr. Prater wasn't out the week of time that we were making him executive director outside of contract, and we wanted to take into account the CPI correctly, that we actually do all of those things at once.
We don't lose
And
the
so
CPI.
yeah, and so to do all of the things at once, I feel like, I mean, it's probably going to end up being something more like 9%, but yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, if I could speak to that, I don't understand why it'd be 9%. Well, actually, with the 2% increase carried over the term of the contract, it far outweighs that 9 days of loss.
I think Mr. Freeman is thinking that the 5% plus the CPI of the 2%, and please correct me, Mr. Freeman, if I'm wrong, that Mr. Prater would lose the 2% CPI, but in the 5%, is the CPI calculated into that?
When the county made their recommendation last April, 0% to 5% for county department heads, that was in light of a 2.2 CPI
Okay.
increase. So they factored that in. They did not call for 5% on top of CPI.
Okay, so that's all factored in.
But that was based on a
Yeah.
2.2 amount, and then it turns out that the CPI is actually 4.7. And so so a 5% raise is, as has been indicated by staff earlier, is effectively a 0.3% raise. And so if we, based on the performance review, if the intent was to provide a raise greater than 0.3% and not have Mr. Prater fall back on the due to inflation, then it would need to be greater than 5%. And the 1 week of lost time is approximately, by the way, about 2%, right? It's like 52 is approximately 50. And so 1 over 50 is about 2%. And so the, if we were to take the 4.7% and then add what was kind of expected by staff on the staff recommendation for the raise based on the performance review, we'd see 4.7 plus like 3.8 plus then the approximately 2%, 1.9% that we would see for the 1 week of lost time. And so I just want to make certain that we're not like, if we're going to do this, I just want to make certain that we all kind of know that we're not like, we're either effectively not compensating for the CPI or not really giving Mr. Prater a raise or not compensating him for the week. Like if we're intending to not do one of those things, that's fine. But like, or not necessarily fine, but like at least we're all on like being honest about it. But otherwise, it's like if we wanted to do all of those things, it wouldn't just be 7%.
So you're looking at the salary information where it says the proposed EO raise is 5% and the consumer price index 4.7%. Is that
right?
correct?
So that results in a,
and that's where you get the 0.03 for the raise.
not 0.3, but yeah, it's 0.3.
Yeah. But, and then we do the 2% in regards to that. I do have a Commissioner, Steve, would you please make a comment?
Sure, I understand. I'm getting both. I understand both of them. But I think at least at the county on the higher level, you know, sometimes we have a max on what the what we're looking at as far as CPI goes. You know, like on the Board of Supervisors, it's 0 to 3, and it maxes out at 3. So even if CPI is 4.7 or 5, you're still not going to get that entire thing. So I think either way is fair. I'm not married to one way or the other, but you know, just because CPI is 4.7, I don't think we have to fill that entire thing plus 3% plus the 2% that we're missing out on the day. So I guess it's all in how we make the motion.
So it all
That's
be
great. I just wanted to make certain that it was all
7%.
explicit. I just want to make certain that it was all explicit to everybody. So it's great.
I think that's important. Yeah.
Mr. Seves?
I'd like to call a question. The motion was made and seconded, and it's for a 7% increase.
And however we get there is, it's 7%.
It's 7%
It's
increase.
7%.
I'm not, you know, it includes the CPI. It's more than CPI, but it's more than what was negotiated. And so the motion is that the attorney come back on December 9th with a new contract reflecting the 7% increase. So I would call for the question, please.
Okay,
And just for the record, it's a conceptual motion
Right.
to do just exactly what Mr. Acebes
Conceptual
said.
motion.
Thank you.
okay. And we had a second on that. Any further discussion? If not, we'll call for the Madam Clerk to call the,
And Chair Waterfield, I would just like to get clarification for the record. Was the second made by Commissioner Guyer?
Yes.
Thank you. I will now call the roll. Commissioner Acebes?
Aye.
Commissioner Freeman?
No.
Commissioner Guyer?
Aye.
Commissioner Hartman?
Aye.
Commissioner Lavanino?
Aye.
Commissioner Stark?
Aye.
Chair Waterfield?
aye. Thank you.
Motion passes 6-1.
Thank you. The next item is information item number 1. Will the clerk please read that item into the record?
Chair Waterfield and members of the commission, information item number 1 is to receive and file a report on pending Santa Barbara Lafco applications.
And the executive officer will give that report.
Great, thank you. This is the pending set of applications that are in our office today. We received two new applications, which was Santa Claus Lane restroom, amending the sphere of influence and annexation to the Carpinteria Sanitation District. It is currently sitting with the county surveyor under second review of map and legal description. We anticipate that becoming available for a hearing likely in January. The second item is the Hagerman sphere of influence and annexation to the Laguna County Sanitation District. That is a small little sliver of a parcel along Waller Park that the district owns and now wants to make it part of their territorial boundary. That too is at the surveyor's office. It went through a second round of review and they've submitted those corrections, and we anticipate that that will become available for our next meeting in December. Beach Club, we just took action on today, and so we'll continue with that follow-up process to get that item completed. The Galileo Pisa is a annexation into the Goleta Sanitation District. That is still on hold. It requires a county approval for a journal plan amendment that the county has not taken final action on. So we're waiting for final action of that. And then we have the Bailey Avenue sphere of influence and annexation into the city of Lompoc. And by today, I was hoping to have new information and news about the direction that the city of Lompoc wished to move forward on this project. And unfortunately, I have not heard from them. So it was anticipated that they would likely submit a new application for a standalone sphere of influence amendment. That has not been determined yet. And so that's still out as an application on hold, pending any direction that the city would like to proceed. So that concludes the projects that are currently on the list that we're working on. And if there are any questions of any of those, I'll be happy to answer any.
I just have one comment. I noticed that your work is getting heavier and heavier, and you're basically a one-man band out there doing that. I'm just, want to know if you need to hire an analyst to help you get through a lot, because I know out there, we're among the weeds and we hear the talk and everything. There's other annexations that are going to take place that are coming down soon. So I'm just thinking out loud that this would be a good time to talk about it if you would want to, or just tell me no, you don't want to discuss it.
Yeah, good question. The workload is on an uptick. What's being shown here is a fraction of what I've been talking to potential applicants and districts of what they want to proceed and do. We anticipate a number of large annexations that will come in. a consolidation likely of the Montecito districts. Santa Rita Hills is looking to do a number of significant changes with their district. So there is an uptick in the work that I foresee coming in the next year. As you know, the Lafco I came from had an organizational structure that had full-time clerk, full-time analyst, and a full-time executive officer. And you can certainly note the difference between transitioning here where we're contracting for clerk services and being a standalone executive officer. So by all means, I think in addition to that application work, we have taken on a robust municipal service review program that I'm proud that we're doing and happy to be doing it, but it does involve significant amount of staff time to complete those types of projects. So that would be my commentation on the workload and any help. Obviously, help is always wanted in some.
Yeah.
But
Well, the reason why I bring it up to the rest of the commissioners is because I've been working with you for a year, and, you know, I've seen a little bit of what you do, but in that small amount, you're extremely busy. And so I would definitely want the commissioners to consider, you know, going out and looking for an analyst to help Mr. Prater.
Madam Chair, if I can make a suggestion.
Absolutely.
I would suggest that maybe in a couple of months, it would be a good opportunity to schedule an item on the agenda so that Mr. Prater can give us a view of the coming workflow and whether he thinks he needs additional help and what it would cost. And we could have a
Absolutely.
focused discussion around that.
Okay, I would definitely agree to that. Absolutely. Okay, the next item is informational item number 2. Would the clerk please read that item into the record?
Chair Waterfield and members of the commission, we actually do have Brian Halverson on for the item that we just were listening to. I believe he has some comments.
Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize. Go right ahead. Mr. Halverson?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention that the city of Lompoc, again, this is Brian Halverson, planning manager with the city of Lompoc. We have been in communication with Mr. Prater, and we thought that we had made it clear that the applications were going to be separated and there was going to be some further environmental review. So I just wanted to make sure that that was present, made part of the record, because we have been communicating with Mr. Prater on that application for our sphere of influence and annexation application.
Mr. Prater, do you want to make a comment?
I would just comment that is our understanding as well,
Yes,
that
okay.
they are working towards that progress. We don't know exactly what the time frame is for that type of submittal.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Brian. I hope you're doing well.
Thank you very much.
You take care. Next item is informational item number 2. Madam Clerk, will you please read that into the record?
Chair Waterfield and members of the commission, information item number 2 is to receive and file a report on the Lafco Legislative Committee meeting held on October 22nd and upcoming meetings on November 5th, 2021.
Thank you. And Mr. Prater.
Yeah, thank you. This is an update that the Lafco Ledge Committee held a meeting and discussed the 3 sponsored bills that Lafco is going to co-sponsor. One of the bills deals with Government Code Section 56133, which is the out-of-agency service agreements. Obviously, every year, Lafco also co-sponsors an omnibus bill, which are insignificant changes to the Cortese-Hertzberg Act. And the third co-sponsored bill deals with the protest provisions. For now going on maybe 3 years, they've been working with various committee members, I believe a very large, like 18-member committee, ad hoc members to deal with. That includes Special Districts Association, CSAC members, Lafco, to deal with protest provisions and trying to rewrite those provisions so that they're consolidated and all carry the same percentage weight of protests so that it's consistent. That bill still is looking for sponsors, as are the other two bills that are being co-sponsored by Cal Lafco. In addition, the Ledge Committee also raised a new bill to be addressed, which would be 56430, which happens to deal with municipal service reviews and the concept of noticing those reviews before an adoption and to have follow-up action for the agencies that are under review to take those up on their agenda. And the recommendation from the Ledge Committee was to have the full board add that component with the protest provisions. Now, the board has yet to make actions on the direction of that. That is anticipated to occur November 12th. November 5th was a slated Ledge Committee to deal with some additional legislative bills that were contemplated by some other LAFCO members, but that has not progressed. And so the November 5th meeting will be canceled and they will not hold a meeting on that. And so the next opportunity will be the regular board, Cal LAFCO board meeting on November 12th to take up a number of items. And we will report back to this commission on the direction that the board committee makes. That board decision or that board meeting also includes some direction about the reappointment or the appointment of the executive director for Cal LAFCO and the changes that have occurred. And so there's a lot of commitments that are going through the process that may weigh on just how deep Cal LAFCO sponsors some of these bills and their involvement. So we'll stay attuned to that, and I'll keep the commission appraised on where the legislative material is going. So with that, that concludes my presentation on the legislative committee and its.
Thank you, Mr. Prater. Do we have any comments from commissioners? Mr. Stark?
I was going to make a comment during commissioner comments on a semi-related Cal LAFCO issue. I can do it now or later, it doesn't matter.
Do it now.
Okay. As you probably know, as punishment for many sins that I committed over the course of my checkered life, I'm now on the Cal LAFCO board of directors and can look forward to a couple exciting trips to Sacramento.
Wow.
Instead, maybe I can take my grandkids with me. In any event, two things are of interest. One, my impression is that the November 12th meeting, they're going to extend the search for a new executive director. They did not successfully find two candidates to interview, so this may drag on for a while. And Cal LAFCO being a really shoestring operation, I didn't know that. They have an executive director and one administrative assistant, and everybody else is volunteers. So getting a good executive director in a very competitive financial environment is going to be a real challenge, and there's no guarantee that it's going to come off successfully. The other thing I wanted to mention is I happened to pop on to what I thought was a pretty good Cal LAFCO webinar, which would be on their website. I'm going to put my glasses on so I can read it. The New Era State of the State in terms of water and fire issues and how they relate to LAFCO. It was a pretty high-powered webinar, which I think they would have done at the conference, had they held a conference. The point of it is there's a lot of state money out there, but you got to sort of work to use it, and what they're stressing is collaboration between different levels of government, which I guess is sort of a heads up to people, particularly in high fire risk areas, bad water basins, water companies, and things like that. That the message from the state is they're willing to spread some money around, and there's quite a bit of it available, but you pretty much have to be creative about planning for wildfire disaster and what looks like a continually worsening drought situation. I thought I'd pass that on.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have any other commissioners with any other comments in regards to information item number 2? If not, we will proceed to the commissioner announcements and any requests for future agendas. We did get your announcement and request, Mr. Stark. Is there anybody else that would like to make any comments? Anyone online? If not, we will go to the executive officer's comments.
Thank you. As we had discussed earlier, the passing of a longtime county representative, Joe Centeno, was being honored by many members in districts and boards and councils. And so, as I understand, Joe was also a Lafco member, a member of our family as well. So as we did similar, I think we ought to pay some respect and have maybe a moment of silence as we adjourn in his honor.
Yes, Mr. Prater, I do want to adjourn this meeting in the memory of Joe Centeno, who was a very dear friend of mine, and he was a great mentor. He was the perfect example of a public servant, and that's how he referred himself, was a public servant going out there and doing good for the communities that he served, but also for the low-income communities, and he was just a tremendous man. So, Mr. Centeno, you are going to be missed, and we can have a moment of silence. Ladies and gentlemen, we will see you on December 9th, 2021. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Enjoy your turkeys, enjoy your family, stay safe out there, and God bless you.